RoofMax by Quality Pace Roofing is a quick and affordable alternative to a complicated and expensive asphalt roof replacement. Your home and business roof may need help going into the winter months. Call 757-9642 and let Quality Pace Roofing see if RoofMax can save you thousands. This is a nationally recognized asphalt shingle rejuvenation process that extends the life of your roof up to 15 years beyond the warranty. Call Quality Pace Roofing, 757-9642 or Google Quality Pace Roofing.
Take your business to the next level with Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce. Whether you're looking to open a new location or broaden your marketing footprint, we'll help you expand your reach throughout Cache Valley. Serving the local business community for over 100 years, the Chamber has the staff, knowledge, and resources to help your business succeed. As a member, you enjoy numerous benefits, from exclusive discounts to social gatherings. Every month, you can choose from a variety of networking events, learning seminars, and workforce development opportunities.
Visit cashchamber.com for more info.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
The following is a paid program of commercial time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims are solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees. It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. If that makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the show on this very wet and cold Saturday morning. Great to have you along with us. Welcome to the Garden Guide. I'm Will Feelwright, and joining us in the studio as always this morning from Anderson Seed and Garden, it's Mark Anderson. And you know, Mark, as much as yesterday may have ruined some people's plans, it was just great to see that rain coming down. I don't think we have seen, in fact, I was going to go back and look through. We had over an inch, it was 1 1/4 inches of rain here officially this morning as we took our official measurement for the National Weather Service, and I don't think we have seen that type of rainfall here in a long time.
Yeah, we had a couple storms this summer that were pretty hefty, but for a nice fall storm, it's been a while. So it's great because the soil's absorbing a lot of that moisture. We're not seeing a lot of runoff. It's just like pulling it all right down into the soil, and that's what we need to start our fall off with. Last year we had such a dry fall and a dry winter that a lot of trees and a lot of shrubs and bulbs and garlic, a lot of plants really suffered because they didn't have that soil moisture through the winter. And this just gives us a great base to start off with some good soil moisture for the trees and the shrubs to really have a productive off season, because it takes a while for them to absorb and pick up that water that's out there. And if the soil is dry all winter long and there's maybe a little bit of snow on top but it doesn't melt and go down into the soil, they'll go for months without getting much moisture, and they're evaporating moisture through the leaves and through the needles, especially on the evergreens, all winter, and so they're going to lose a lot of moisture that they just can't replenish if the soil's not moist.
And it fell really all day. It wasn't really heavy. I mean, there were times where it was coming down, but it didn't just consistently just pound, and so it didn't run off much. It just was nice throughout the day. Just that constant rainfall. It was just great.
And it seems like it just kind of rained gently all night.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we need to really get that absorption. So, but it looks like we've got more. We've got more coming. So.
Yep. And even a little bit of the other type of moisture. Next week we could see a little bit of snow up on the benches.
Well, watching the weather this week, I figured, all right, it's time to get the squashes and the pumpkins and harvest all the corn. So we planted a late crop of corn, probably about the I think it's around the 15th or 20th of July, so that we'd have it coming on the 1st of October, end of September. And boy, I picked a whole wheelbarrow full of corn on Thursday, and it was great. For the first week of October to have that kind of sweet corn coming out of the gardens, just it's wonderful.
Yeah. We went out and picked the last of we had all of our spaghetti squash and we left the pumpkins. They'll, they're fine, but we pulled in all the spaghetti squash, and which does bring a question, as people are pulling in all of those fall crops, what's the best way to store them? I know that's something we've talked about in the past, squashes, those last zucchinis and yellow squash.
Definitely try and cover that today. So I had some banana squash. I had some kabocha, which is an Asian squash. It's really, really good. Had some butternuts and some delicata. And so this week I went out and I trimmed those off the vines because it looks like it's going to freeze pretty hard next week. Yeah. So this is the time to get that stuff harvested, because after this cold front comes in on Monday, it's looking like we're into the low 20s on Tuesday or Wednesday, and so we're down into those low 20s. We want to get these more susceptible crops harvested, or else they're going to get damaged. And so gathered those all up. I trimmed them off the vine, so there's about 2 or 3 inches of stem left on the squashes. Sometimes you have to go a little bit shorter. So like on my delicatas, there's probably only about an inch of stem on there, just because their stems are smaller. But left a longer stem on them. Gathered those up gently in the wheelbarrow, and don't. When you harvest them and when you put them in storage, you got to be careful with them and not bruise them, because that's where they'll deteriorate a lot faster. So be real gentle with them. Put them in the wheelbarrow carefully, hauled them into the barn, laid them out on the straw, and so they're just kind of curing right now. So a warmer, drier location where the sun doesn't shine on them. We're going to leave them there for 2 or 3 weeks, and so they will develop that hard outer wrapper skin on those winter squashes. And as that happens, that skin will harden up, and if you scrape them with your thumb or a fingernail, they're hard, and the moisture doesn't bubble up to the surface. That's when they're ready to store. And then at that point, after the 2 or 3 weeks of the warm, dry weather, or the warm, dry location, then we're going to move them to our cool, dry location. So down the basement, down the cold cellar, the fruit storage room, and try to get those up off the ground. So put them on a crate or on a pallet or something, so that there's air circulation around the fruit.
Underneath them.
Yeah, and try and kind of lay those out so they're not stacked on top of each other either. So you get that air circulation all the way around, and then they will keep a lot longer that way. We do the same thing with the onions. Onions go into a kind of a warm, dry location for at least 3 weeks, so they can develop that hard outer wrapper skin. And so we've had our onions in the barn for a couple of weeks, or I'm going to try and leave them a little bit longer, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll trim the tops off, put them in an onion sack. They'll go down in our cold storage, and your cold storage temperature should be around probably between 38 and 50 degrees is like perfect, and a relatively low humidity would be very, very good for keeping those a little bit longer. But where it's going to get really cold this weekend, it's probably a good idea to maybe cover or protect some of your squash. Even if you've got them in like a shed or a barn, if it gets cold enough where it can freeze those fruits, it'll damage them, and they won't keep. So last year, unfortunately, we had that really hard frost that happened about mid-October, and it's right after we'd harvested our squash. We had them in the barn, and it got cold enough in the barn that it froze the squash, and we just had to throw about half of them away because they had been damaged by that cold temperature. So I may even throw a little tarp or an insulated blanket or something over the top of some of our squash this coming week when it gets really cold, just to protect those a little bit, so they don't get frozen. And so I'll kind of keep an eye on the temperatures, because the weather's going to be nice after next week. I mean, we're going to get some good weather again, and so I want those to cure a little bit longer before I put them into cold storage. And so I'll probably cover and protect them this year, since we lost so many last year. We probably lost half of our squash last year. Yeah.
Well, we've joked before that I can remember during years past, my wife will say, let's open up a spaghetti squash, and you have to have almost a buck saw. Because that's what you want. You want that skin to just be nice, so hard that it allows you to be able to store it for months. And, and if you've got that cured just right, you can easily be enjoying those squashes into next spring.
Oh, yeah, until January, February, for sure. You know, I think last year, even with the damage that we had on some of the squash, we had a lot that lasted until the first part of March, you know, without too much trouble. And there's some that have really, really hard skins on them, you know, like the Hubbard squashes. They're just like a rock.
Yeah.
You almost need a really sharp axe or a sledgehammer, to break into those because they're just so tough.
But once you break them open, boy, you know, you put them in a pressure cooker. I've heard is a great way to cook
works
those
great
up.
with the squash. Yeah, we do ours in pressure cooker all the time. So if you even leave the skin on them and put them in the pressure cooker, once they cook, they'll just separate from the skin really, really easily. So it's you know, you can just basically cut them up into pieces, and I'll do mine in like 3x3, 4x4 pieces, and just throw them in the pressure cooker, and then pressure cook them for 5 to 7 minutes is all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, and then you pull those suckers out, and the skin just like comes right off. It's like super, super easy.
That's something we're gonna have to. We've never tried it in the pressure cooker.
Super easy.
Oven and mic has always worked great because you just lay more butter than you need, but it makes it taste so good.
It does.
Now, while we're talking about that, caller just called in and said that she just wanted to know, how do you store beets?
Great question.
Because that's similar. You want to make sure you cure those, let them dry out before you put them in storage.
So what we do, there's a couple different ways you can do the beets. You know, we do carrots either right in the garden, and so you can leave the carrots right in the garden. So what I'll do is go out there and I'll trim the tops off, because if you leave the tops, then the deer will get in there and they'll paw through the leaves or mulch or whatever you end up covering them with and eat the tops. And so we'll take the tops off and make sure not to damage the carrots or the beets, because we can do the beets the same way, but trim them down so that the tops aren't flopping all over the place. Yeah. And with the beets, you can actually use the tops and, you know, cook those as like spinach or chard and you know, get the flavor, or you can use them fresh if they're small. But we'll just leave them right in the ground. And then we used to cover them with leaves or compost, or, you know, and then in the wintertime, you'd have to go out there and clean the snow off and then clean the mulch away and then dig them up. But they'll stay in the ground in that cold weather and just retain their quality, and actually they get a little bit sweeter as they sit out there. But what we've done in the last few years is we put them in garbage bags, we put leaves in the garbage bags. There we go.
Oh, okay.
we don't put the carrots or the beets in the garbage bags. Leave them in the ground, but take all your leaves and grass clippings and put those in garbage bags.
Okay.
And then put the garbage bags on top of on top of the carrots and on top of the beets. And what it does is it insulates that area where the garbage sack is. The snow piles on top of it. But then when you want to go dig your stuff up, you can just go out there and basically, you know, kick the bag once or twice. All the snow falls off. Move the bag, and then the soil.
The dirt's exposed.
Yeah, the dirt's exposed. And the soil's not as frozen, so it's not as hard. It's easier to get in there and dig your carrots and your beets out. But then you just grab the bag and throw it back on top. It keeps the deer out. It keeps the other critters out because they don't like the plastic, and the plastic kind of covers all those plants, so they can't smell them since that they're there. And it just makes it really easy to access those. Last year, we decided we wanted to bring the carrots inside, and so we did them in totes. And so I harvested all the carrots probably about the first part of November and cut the tops off, same thing. And then we put about a 2-inch layer of sand in the bottom of a really big tote. And then I put a layer of carrots in there. And then I did another inch of sand over the top of those. And then we did another layer of carrots. And I just laid them side by side, you know, just laid them right in there. Some of them were laying on top of the other ones. I mean, it wasn't like perfectly aligned.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have them like stacked like little soldiers in there. But I mean, there's like a layer of carrots and then a little bit of sand over the top, and then another layer of carrots and another layer of sand. And I just layered them all the way through. And we use those carrots all winter. And I just kept them out in the garage, and I had them covered with a couple blankets, so when it got really cold, because our garage isn't heated, and so it's a detached garage, so no heat in there, so it got cold enough to freeze the carrots, but we covered them and insulated them inside that tote, and it was the best. We just go out there, and it's like, oh, let's do some carrots for dinner today. And so we'd open that up, and I'd just kind of scrape the sand away and just pull carrots out.
A few carrots out.
And then cover them back up and threw the lid on and put the blankets back on it. It was so easy. It made it so we used carrots basically all winter last year, where before I'd go, I don't want to trudge out in the garden and dig them all up. It's like it makes such a mess, and I track all the mud around, and we'll just save them for next time. We'd never eat all the carrots out in the garden. We ate all the carrots we put in the tote last year, like every single one of them.
Now, could you do the same thing with beets? Store them in a tote?
Exactly the same
like
thing
that?
with the beets. Yeah, you can do exactly the same thing with the beets, and they'll stay crisp and they'll stay fresh a lot longer. I mean, you can store the beets just in your cold cellar like you would the squash, but they'll start to go rubbery. They'll start to go rubbery, and so if you keep them in the sand like that, the sand retains a little bit of moisture. The cold kind of insulates those. It's like putting them in a refrigerator, basically.
It allows it to get the air around them.
Yeah, and so it works great in the sand. So you can do carrots and beets and turnips basically the same way.
All the same way.
Yeah.
Well, coming up in just
awesome.
a minute, we'll talk about, you brought up another question, chard. I know that's something that a lot of people are wondering about. But first, we have Ron joining us on the line from Clifton. Ron, thanks for calling in this morning. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thanks. I'm going to change the topic maybe if you'll let me.
No, that's fine.
I've used a couple of products that you introduced me to, the Monterey Garden Floss, and especially for fire blight,
yes,
and the Monterey Complete Disease Control. It's supposed to be complete for everything that grows green. Can you give me your perspective so far on those two products?
The Complete Disease Control, I have been using it for a couple years, and it works amazingly well on soil-borne diseases. So I've been treating my tomatoes and potatoes and a lot of other plants that are affected by, say, verticillium or fusarium, or with the potatoes, early and late blight. They're kind of soil-borne pathogens, and it has been amazing. Like the years past, we used to plant 30 tomatoes because we knew we were going to lose 5 or 7 or 8 to verticillium in my dad's garden, and we'd just plant extras. Well, ever since I started using the Complete Disease Control, I don't lose any plants, and they have done amazingly well. So I think we planted 25 plants this year, and I've got one that has finally picked up a little bit of verticillium, and it's starting to die. But here it is, the end of the season. I don't really care at this point, and so it has protected those plants pretty much throughout the entire summer with some drenches in the springtime. It works great for powdery mildew on cucumbers and on the melons and all the squashes. So I've had really good results with it that way as well too. Haven't used it much for like leaf spots or rust on. Say roses, it's because the roses really get diseased quite a bit. But we've used it on 9 barks for powdery mildew and all the vegetables. And the great thing about the Complete Disease Control, it's all natural. It's a natural bacteria, and so it's safe to use like right up to the minute that you harvest your vegetables or your fruits. So it's a very safe product to use, but also very, very effective. And so we've been very, very excited about that one. As for the Garden Floss, it's a systemic fungicide, and it does work on bacterial diseases as well as fungal diseases. So that's why it's so effective on the fire blight. We have saved a lot of trees, a lot of plants that have been damaged by fire blight, and we've been able to stop that progression of the disease, because once it gets into it, it just continues to move through the plant until it kills whole branches or even the whole tree. And so we've been very, very fortunate to have great results with the Garden Floss on fire blight, but it works on anthracnose, and we've had really good results with it on bacterial bud blight, on a lot of other stone fruits that don't get fire blight, but it works on the bacterial bud blight. It does work on mildews really, really well too, but it works systemically, so it works from the inside out. Seems to kind of perk plants up that have been damaged by disease, and it gives them a little bit more vitality, a little bit more vigor than what they have had. So that's been a great option as well too, Ron.
Well, that was a nice long answer. So for the complete disease control, when I try to colonize the roots on a plant, once they're colonized, is that going to last forever for the plant, or do I have to repeat that application?
I do it when I plant, like, say, my tomatoes, the first 3 waterings to really get them established. And then I'll usually, partway through the season, I'll mix it up in a watering can and I'll water them with it, but I'll get it all over the leaves as well, too. So it works on those fungal diseases that are popping up on the leaves. Great for bacterial speck on tomatoes. And so it'll keep those late season diseases from doing damage to your fruit. And once you really apply it and it does colonize the root system, it'll stick around with that plant for the entire season. So it's very similar to how the mycorrhiza work. That once you introduce that to a host plant, it'll stick around and protect its host continuously as the host continues to grow. So, yeah.
Great. And on the garden floss, I've gone to applying it to save my expensive garden floss. I apply it with a brush on the bark after I've cut off the diseased part.
Yes.
Even though Clayton Smith would not comment on that procedure since it's not officially on the label, and then I won't buy as much of his product.
we use it as a basil bark treatment as well too, and I have a new additive. It's called basil blue oil, and you can mix it in with your garden floss. It'll make it penetrate into the bark a lot better. So the basil oil blue is made specifically for bark treatments, and it really helps with penetration and absorption through the bark. So that will be a great additive to go with it.
Have you got a comparison between that and the specifically recommended Pentra bark, which is also quite pricey?
Should be very similar. Yeah, should be very similar. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks again for introducing me to those two wonderful products.
You are so welcome, Ron. I appreciate the question, and you have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rain.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Thank you.
And that opens up the phone lines at 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868 if you have a question for Mark Anderson. We need to talk about what's going on over at the store, but first we've got Neil hanging on the line. Neil, go ahead. You're on the Garden Guide.
Hi.
Hey, Neil.
Thanks for taking my call. I have a tree that's half full of a yellow delicious apple tree that there's about half of them I haven't picked yet. What's your recommendation about what to do given the weather forecast coming up?
I would probably get them picked on Monday if you can. It looks like we're going to get some more rain Monday, and then Monday night it's going to shift over to snow, and then Tuesday or Wednesday we're going to have some low 20s. That's going to be cold enough to probably damage those fruit if we get parts of the valley that are in the low 20s. I don't know if it will be that cold through the entire valley, but we'll wait and see how it goes. But probably a good idea to get those harvested and bring those in, or else they'll just freeze around on the tree and do some damage. And so we have had some light frosts that have hit the valley, which is great. But next week it's going to be the 12th, 13th that we get frost. That's not bad, for our first real hard frost in the valley. To have it in almost mid-October. So I think I would get those. I'd get those harvested and bring those in. They should be really close to being ready.
Okay, I'm just curious. Is there, is there a number, temperature-wise, that you look for as to when the damage will occur? Is it somewhere in the mid-20s to low 20s, or what is that?
Mid to low 20s. So usually if it looks like it's going to get below, say, 25, 26, that's when you probably want to get those harvested. And it just really kind of depends on how cold it stays, the duration. Not, if we if you watch kind of the way frost works, sometimes nighttime temperatures will stay, 35, 34, 34, 34, and then all of a sudden, right before the sun comes up, it just drops down to say 30 for like an hour and then comes back up. And usually that's not cold enough to really freeze or do any damage. But if it gets down below freezing at midnight and it stays that way until, 9 o'clock the next morning, then it's long enough to do some damage. Yeah, to do some damage. So watch for that. Watch for those temperatures, the duration of the cold temperatures.
Okay, and then what's the best way to store the apples to keep them, usable for the longest period of time?
You don't have to do any particular preparation for them, except again, try not to damage them, bruise them. They won't keep as well if they get bruised or cut or mushed around. And straight into cold storage, 35 to 40 degrees, and a little higher humidity on the fruits. So we like a little higher relative humidity on the fruits, and they'll keep great in storage like that. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're so welcome, Neil. You have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
And Neil brings up a good point. Not only are you probably going to want to be picking up all the apples, but I know we were helping a neighbor to harvest some of his apple trees, and I noticed some of his Brussels sprouts were still in the garden. And
those should be good.
You think those would make it through
so
a
Brussels,
hard frost?
The Brussels sprouts and, say, cabbage and spinach, a lot of those cold crops, they should be fine. Yeah,
now, a caller called in and said, what about chard?
Yeah, chard's really tough, too. We had chard last year until probably almost Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yeah,
and you can leave it in the ground.
Yeah, and it'll do just fine. Even if it gets frozen, it doesn't do damage to the cell structure nearly as much, and so it'll come back even if it gets really cold. So it should keep going, and we're probably getting ready to put the garden to bed here at the end of this month, 1st of November, and so we're just harvesting everything right now. So I picked another bushel and a half of tomatoes, and carrots and beets. We've left those in the ground. The chard, I've left those. Pretty much everything else is, if it freezes, it's going to be gone. So the cucumbers will be done. All the squashes will be finished. Summer squash, I've still got zucchinis coming on, so I'm going to probably harvest those tomorrow so we can have them for dinner. Through the little zucchini and onion for lunch tomorrow. So sounds really good.
Yes, it does.
But pretty much the corn's toast and everything else is. So now we're just going into root crops. But, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, even into the mid to low 20s, they would be fine.
Okay.
If we get into the high teens, then it'll do some damage to them.
See, and I was really hoping I could just say, hey, you know what? Do you want me to pick those Brussels sprouts for you and take care of them?
And then you brought me an apple today, too. To
that was another one from the neighborhood. They said, hey, what? Do you know what this apple is?
So I'm doing a lot of fruit identification for people right now, which is terrible because then everybody brings me like delicious fruits to sample. But apple you brought in, nice red, rounded. I looked at it and I told you I thought it was a Cortland before we even opened it up. But then we opened it up, and Cortland has a really white flesh to it, so it's a really light white colored flesh. It doesn't brown very fast, and look, it's been sitting here for a half an hour, and it's just barely starting to brown a little bit, and it's got that tart Macintosh flavor, but it's a little harder, so it's a little harder apple, so it'll store longer. And it's got a nice crisp to it, so I'm positive now that it's a Cortland. Since it sat here on the counter for 35 minutes.
Well, and right now we spent half of the week doing applesauce. I think we altogether did about a dozen quarts of applesauce over a couple of nights, and just great time to be able to harvest those apples now, because like Neil said, if we get down into those low temperatures and we don't take those apples off the tree, we could lose them.
Yeah, you want to get that done. So you mentioned at the store, we've got all kinds of things going on. Bulbs are all here. So all of our fall bulbs finally came in. So all the tulips, daffodils, hyacinth, crocus. We've got some gorgeous allium. We've got some Fritillaria, a whole bunch of different bulbs. Great time to plant. So usually from the first week of October until the ground freezes in November is the best time to plant bulbs, and garlic as well too. So we've got a great selection of garlic also if you want to plant garlic. So easy to do. Bulbs are about, if you don't think you're a very good gardener, bulbs are the way to go. They're self-sufficient. All you got to do is dig your hole, put some fertilizer down in, put the bulb in, cover it up, water them well, and then let Mother Nature take its course. It's just they're just easy to do. So bulbs are all here finally. We should have amaryllis bulbs in the next week or two. So excited about those showing up as well too. Got some great fall decor displays, and we've started putting some of that on sale as well too. So if you want to decorate your house for fall, we've got some gorgeous fall decor, and a lot of those we've started to reduce the prices on those. So it's a good time for doing that. And of course, our cash sale continues, starting to get down to the last few shrubs and a few trees left. But we did this last week. We'll do it again this week. If you want to come in today, pay with cash. We'll give you 75% off on what we've got left. So there are some really great shrubs. There's a few, like a handful of trees left and some nice evergreens. But if you pay with cash, you get 75% off of regular price. So that's the best price you're going to get.
Great deal.
All year.
Okay. The cash sale going on this weekend. Yeah. Mark Anderson at Anderson Seed and Garden joining us for the Garden Guide. And we'll take our break here at the bottom of the hour and come back. We'll talk more about just how to be able to take care of the garden now that we've pulled the vegetables out. How do you prep it for winter? And plus also finish up talking more about fall crops. And we can take more of your calls. Phone lines are open at 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868 for the KVNU Garden Guide, with more next.
Minutes after the hour, I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update. Police in Layton are investigating an auto pedestrian accident that left one juvenile dead. Sergeant Hill with the Layton Police Department told KUTV that the accident happened at approximately 8:30 Thursday night. A 71-year-old man was driving a mid-sized SUV southbound on Main Street. The adult man crashed into the juvenile male at the intersection of Main Street and Midtown Crossing. Police are unsure if the victim was using a crosswalk or not, but it is believed that the driver would have had the right-of-way. The juvenile was transported to the hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. The driver has cooperated with police officers in their investigation that is ongoing. Meanwhile, newly released documents from the investigation of a woman accused of conspiring to kill her children and husband reveal sordid details of a cult-like belief system of zombies and vibrations. Documents from the Chandler Police Department in Arizona examined the lives of Lori and Chad Daybell via text messages, computer files, and interviews. Both are charged with conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of Lori's children, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 17-year-old Tylee Ryan, and in the deaths also of Chad's previous wife, Tammy Daybell. Now, Lori Daybell is also being charged with conspiring to kill her estranged husband, Charles Vallow, with the help of her brother. The brother, meanwhile, died in 2019. Well, it's going to remain cold this weekend and into next week, as daytime temperatures are expected to stay right around the mid to low 50s. Overnight temperatures are expected to stay right around the mid 30s, still with a chance of some showers possible. And as we head into this next week, we could see the possibility of snow. I'm Will Feelright for KVNU News.
From ABC Sports. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Ant. After being shut out in Game 1 by the Rays, the Red Sox bats came alive with 14 runs and 20 hits. J.D. Martinez broke the tie in the 5th with a huge jack in the dome.
Kiermaier back to the warning track by the wall, and he jumps. It's gone!
On WEEI, the Bo Sox knot up the ALDS at 1 game apiece with a 14-6 spanking in Tampa Bay as the series shifts to Boston. To the Bay on the West Coast, bitter rivals in the NL West, Logan Webb came up big with 10 Ks and 7 2/3 innings for San Francisco. Buster Posey took Walker Buehler yard.
Buster hits a fly ball deep to right field. Way back there. Adios, Pelota!
On KNBR, Giants blanked the Dodgers 4-0, taking a 1-0 NLDS lead. And the Astros beat the White Sox 9-4. They're a win away from the sweep. And the Brewers win 2-1 in a nail-biter against Atlanta. This is ABC Sports.
Hi, kids. Today, we're going to learn the difference between dirty and clean. See this car? It's dirty. Now, watch as it goes through Green Gorilla Car Wash. Now the car is clean. To recap, first the car was dirty. Now it's clean. Dirty, clean. You get it? And for only $14.99, get monthly unlimited washes good for any of their washes, including the $18 Jungle Wash with ceramic coating.
No one thinks their vehicle's dirty until they see what clean looks like. Green Gorilla Car Wash in Logan, and now their new location in Smithfield.
The American Festival Chorus and Orchestra is celebrating 14 years of making music together. And as a special tribute, we're bringing you some of our and your all-time favorite music. Join us for an evening of new beginnings and listen to some of the choir's most loved choral and orchestral pieces with special guest Kurt Bester, the Cass Children's Choir, and the Westminster Bell Choir. Saturday, October 9th at 7:30. The American Festival Chorus and Orchestra is back with a full season of great performances in the Danes Concert Hall. Purchase tickets to the October 9th performance with Kurt Bester, the Cass Children's Choir, and the Westminster Bell Choir online at AmericanFestivalChorus.org.
Trouble with pain, sleep, or anxiety? Want better health? Try CBD7, the CBD experts. You simply can't get this water-soluble CBD at grocery, convenience, or health food stores. Water-soluble CBD7 absorbs 15 times better and tastes great. CBD7 has the only clinically proven formula with real measurable results. Many feel better in minutes. CBD7 is not a drug and has no side effects. Other CBDs just can't do all that. Visit CBD7 today. Learn about CBD and try our best for free.
The Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
And welcome back on this wet. In fact, I was just looking back through the almanac of recorded precipitation measurements that we have had, and it is one of the most rain totals that we've had in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some months, and there are months when we've had 5 and 6 inches of rain, but that's been over an entire month. And for us to have over 1.25 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, add that to the 1/4 inch that we had the night before.
Yeah.
So we're looking at already 1.5 inches of rain. So pretty impressive.
Out of the storm.
Rain
And we could get another 1/2 inch is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Or more.
Oh, it'd be great.
We'll take it.
2 inches of rain. Yeah, just keep it coming. It's answer prayers.
It's a great start to the season, and it kind of gives us an indication of hopefully what winter's going to be like as well too. So if we get some nice snow totals, I know there'll be some ski resorts that are fairly happy around here, as well as a lot of gardeners.
Yeah, and a lot of us water users that will be happy as well.
Yes,
because
to have water.
I know, it was a little scary this summer, and even though we were able to hold on to our reserves as much as possible, and many of us cut back, but. The reality of us getting that close is a little scary.
Yeah, and it's a good wake up call that we need to be a little bit more conservative with our water. We need to be a little bit more conscientious of what we're planting and how we have to maintain those and how much water we have to use to keep our landscapes looking good. But there's a lot of great options out there of turf that doesn't need nearly as much water to stay green. We've got a lot of plants that are very low water usage and a lot of different ways to apply that water. I mean, when you switch from, say, a sprinkler to water your landscape with and go to a drip system instead, you can maintain the same plants that you've got in there, but you're going to use 90% less water.
Yeah.
That's a huge savings. That's a huge savings when you can drop it down to only use 10% of the water you were using previously just by switching to a different method of watering. And it's just equally as effective, if not more effective, than the sprinklers would be because they evaporate so much water off. So,
and that was one thing we did, with a garden. The reality is gardens can take up a lot of water.
Yeah.
And one thing we did this year is we focused our watering. We haven't gone to a drip system yet on some crops, but others we've focused that watering so that we were actually just watering the plant itself.
Yeah.
And not only did we save water, but also the plants
did
just
better.
took off.
Yeah, they did better.
I mean, we didn't. I've never seen some of the squash plants so large that we were able to have this year.
We use soaker hoses. And in some areas, we'll use drippers, especially in the big areas where there's squashes, because you don't have to, water all the space in between the squashes.
Mm-hmm.
You can just, water those squashes and pumpkins, and they take up a lot of space. But it's more effective. It puts the water right down into the root zone. You don't have all that evaporation, and you're only putting it right where the plants are growing. And so you've got these spaces in between where you're not watering the weeds. I hate watering weeds. Yeah, it's like, why am I going to give that water to the weeds? Yeah. And my garden did.
And then you got to pull them later.
Yeah, my garden did so well this year until about mid-August, and we started getting those rains end of July, 1st of August, and then the weeds just went ballistic out there in the garden, and I was just like, oh, man. Yeah. It's like I had you all under control. Now the plants are overgrown. I can't run my tiller down, and it just wasn't effective. Yeah. So there's weeds all over the place now, so we just let them do their thing.
And we're glad to get the rain and hoping that we'll get more.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we talk more about what's going on over at Anderson Seed and Garden and also preparing your fall garden, we have Kathy who's joining us on the line. Kathy, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thank you. We've got a lot of rain up here, too, about 1.4 inches so far.
Nice.
Great. Yesterday afternoon. So
Wonderful.
That is awesome.
Question. So we've been kind of trying to reseed, and it hasn't taken very well. Is it too late for me to put more grass seed on the lawn?
That is a great question, and that depends on what the weather brings in the next 3 weeks. And so October is a great time to overseed and get some new grass out there. With the temperatures, quickly declining, it will increase the time it takes for that grass seed to germinate. So a month ago, it was coming up in about 7 days, and now it's more like 2 weeks. And so if we've got some good weather, some nice warm days after this storm system comes through, you could get germination all the way through October. But once we get into November, we're consistently getting much cooler, and you don't have too many really warm days in there, and so it really slows down the progression of the germination of the grass seed. And so I would not hesitate to plant right now, just because it's more than likely we're going to have some good weather for the next 3 to 4 weeks. But anytime after, say, the 20th, 25th of October, probably too late at that point. So if you can get some out between storms here, your chances are pretty good, especially if you do a little bit of rye in with your bluegrass. The rye will germinate for sure. The bluegrass will probably winter over. Even if it doesn't germinate, it'll winter over and come up next spring. So the bluegrass is...
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, the bluegrass is really good at wintering over. The rye and the fescues don't winter over nearly as well, but they germinate in cooler temperatures. And so if you get those to germinate now, you'd be great. The bluegrass, if it doesn't all come up, it'll probably still be there next year and come up next spring.
So should I not plant it until after this cold, or plant it now and hope that it warms up after?
I'd plant it now, and the moisture's not going to hurt one bit. Just make sure it's incorporated if possible, so it doesn't wash off if we get some harder storms.
Yeah.
But a little bit of moisture on top of it would not hurt a bit. And the sooner you get it out, the more likely it is to germinate, because the ground's still warm. Ground hasn't gotten really cold yet. Our air temperatures are getting cooler, though, especially at night. So that's going to just kind of slow things down. But if the soil retains that moisture, that heat, it'll still germinate.
Okay, I will give it a try.
All right, awesome. Hey, thanks for calling, Kathy. Good luck with your grass. I got my fingers crossed for you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right. If you'd like to join us here on the Garden Guide, phone numbers are 753-5868, 753-KVNU, and Will's been busy answering the phone over there. So,
yeah. In fact, Christine is holding on the line, and she's next. Welcome to the show this morning, Christine.
Hi, Mark.
How are you today?
I'm overwhelmed, but good. As I was telling the gentleman that answered the phone, I have a big, what do they call them? Not semi-dwarf, big apple tree, you know?
You have standard-sized trees. Yes, gotcha.
Yeah, and I was hoping that I would have a few more days because there's lots of delicious apples on there.
Yes.
But, oh well.
You'll share them. We'll share them with the birds.
Yeah, or the deer, whatever the case may be.
That too.
At least then they're not totally going to waste.
Yeah.
If the animals can
at least.
Somebody's getting them. So, but you have a question. You have a question.
I do. I've learned maybe the hard way. I make salsa, and my daughter and I make it every year. My question is, I've been using regular tomatoes, and then I heard that you should use Roma. So my question is, can I use, or would Roma be better? And what brand and how many would I have to plant to be able to feed? I have 3 people that like my salsa.
That is a great question, and it depends on how you like your salsa. So if you like it more juicy, then it doesn't matter which type of tomatoes you do. The Romas just tend to be more meaty and not as juicy, and so they're more of a drier flesh. And so a lot of people will make like tomato paste out of Romas, or they're great for sun-dried tomatoes because they're not as wet. And so it just depends. We make fresh salsa. We usually have a salsa party. We didn't do it this year, but years past we've done salsa and sarsaparilla nights at our place, which is great because sarsaparilla is like better than root beer.
Oh yeah,
and so we do salsa and sarsaparilla, and it's a really fun evening. We make everybody cut tomatoes and peppers and stuff, and it's kind of interactive. But we would use all kinds of tomatoes that would come out of the garden. So we plant Pink Girl, and we plant Big Beef, and I plant Celebrity, and I plant a bunch of Romas. And this year we did Brandy Master, and we did some not Cherokee Purple. We did Purple Boy. So I got a whole bunch of different tomatoes, and you can use all those for the salsa, unless you really want it a lot drier, because the regular tomatoes have a lot more juice, a lot more moisture in there. So it's kind of a personal preference. It's whatever you like. So, but Romas traditionally are used a lot for salsas because they are a little bit drier, and they are definitely used more for sauces and making tomato paste, sun-dried tomatoes, things like that.
So what we do is we don't like all the juice.
Yeah.
So we will take and squeeze the juice out of the tomatoes and have a lot of meat.
Yeah, there you go.
But I just been buying regular, like whatever you have at the store,
just
Big Boy, whatever.
Regular tomatoes. We grow a variety of Romas that's called Optimax, and the Optimax is a little bit more expensive when it comes to seed. They're about 25 cents a seed, but I'll tell you what, the fruits are huge. They are probably 10, 12, 16-ounce fruits, so they're bigger Romas, and they're really meaty. And last year I grew 4 plants, and we probably picked a bushel to a bushel and a half off of each plant.
And will you get more? I guess I'm trying to, I don't have a very big garden, so I plant maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5. And this year they got so big because I used your soaker hose.
Yes,
they just fell over,
and it does help.
And
gotta get bigger cages.
We won't talk about cages because they came from you.
It's just a shame when those tomato plants just become so big.
My plants grew so big this year.
They're amazing.
I used handy cages on them, which are the best cages out there. But they grew taller than the handy cages. In fact, they doubled over, and they've been crawling across the ground. So my handy cages are like 3.5, 4 feet tall. But then they grew another 4 feet down to the ground, and then they're crawling across the ground. So I can't help that, unfortunately. So, but
I have the red ones and the blue ones, and I'm going to come back next year and replace the wimpy ones with the red ones or the blue ones.
Yeah. So what you want to look for next year is get the big handy cages, because once you sink those in the ground, they will be about 5.5 feet tall, and
the handy cages.
Yep, they're called big handies, and they're great for tomatoes that get really tall. So they have supported my my cherry tomatoes very nicely this year, and they are like 6 feet tall plus.
I didn't expect with a soaker hose to have such a good crop.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Nope, it does. It does. But, and you must have fed them really well too. So I would plan on at least a bushel to a bushel and a half, sometimes more, off of the plants. And the varieties that we really prefer to use would be like Big Beef is always really super productive, nice fruit, great quality, really good plant. Better Boy, Celebrity, and then any of your Romas for a much drier flesh. But you'll really like that Optimax. It's a great tomato. Viva Italia is really good too. We do a lot of those. Andiamo is a nice San Marzano type. It's got a little bit more disease resistance to it. So there's a whole bunch of good ones to try.
So do they yield, like we do them in pints, do they yield more?
Since the Optimax are such large fruits, we have gotten more off of that plant than any other Roma that I've ever grown.
Okay. All right, maybe next year I'll try a variety and grow some Romas.
Yeah, so if you do the Optimax, I don't usually carry the plants. None of the growers around here grow them, so I grow my own. And it is by far the best Roma tomato for volume that I've ever grown.
So you just start the seeds yourself?
Yeah. Usually about mid-March. Mid-March is perfect for some nice plants to transplant out around Mother's Day.
Okay, I guess I'll have to come visit you.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, I've got a seminar planned next year for mid-March on actually probably first part of March for starting your own seeds, on how to be successful starting your own seeds inside. So
how soon do you start this? You're talking on the radio.
First weekend of March. Yeah, first weekend of March.
Okay.
So I'll remind everybody at that point. But we're finishing up the calendar right now, so the calendar's really, really close. We're just putting the final touches on. But I've got a lot of classes set up for next year. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and do afternoon classes on Wednesday when the market's going on Center Street. And so it's going to be like, it's going to be like a lunch seminar. So you come down to Center Street, you go grab lunch somewhere, you bring it over to Anderson's. We'll let you eat in the classroom upstairs, and we'll do like a 45-minute seminar during lunch during the Wednesday markets. We thought it'd be really fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all you've done to help me be a better gardener.
Thanks, Christine. We try our best. Okay. We try our best. So
you guys.
And good luck
Thank you.
picking all those apples, Christine.
Yes.
Oh, come on. You guys got to come and help me.
We're coming over. I'm gonna eat my Cortland right now. So.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Thank you again.
All right. See ya.
Okay. Bye.
About 4 minutes left, and we do want to talk a little bit about preparing the garden for winter. We did not get to that yet.
So as the garden's getting frozen and you're harvesting everything, and it's like usually by the time Halloween hits, you got lots of leaves coming off the trees, and I don't like raking up leaves. I like vacuuming up the leaves with the lawnmower. That's like the best way to go. So we'll drop the mower blade down. We've already started to drop our mower blade down
a little bit.
Yeah. So we're trimming the grass a little bit closer to get it ready for winter. And when you mow closer like that, it will spread out more. So it'll get your grass to thicken up. So it's a really good way to get your grass to thicken up before winter. But start dropping the mower blade down and pick up all the leaves as you go through. So you get a combination of leaves and grass clippings. And that's great to put out in your garden, spread out. But spread it out as thinly as possible. Try and get it spread over the whole garden. Don't dump it in big piles. And what will happen is the grass clippings will kind of dry out a little bit, but it leaves all the carbon part of the plant. And that's what we're going to put back into the soil. There's a lot of carbon right now. So 1.5 inches, 2 inches of leaves and grass clippings, inch of compost, inch of manure. Straw works great. The key is to use a lot of variety of different materials. So we're going to use a variety of different materials, not a whole lot of one thing, which can cause problems. But we want 3 or 4 different things, maybe an inch of each one. And then add some humate to it, broadcast humate over the top of it, add some straight nitrogen. You can use Milorganite if you want to use a natural organic fertilizer. You can use ammonium sulfate if you're okay with a standard, traditional fertilizer. But we need to get a good source of nitrogen out there along with the humate, along with all that organic matter. And, wood ash is great. Just don't use too much of it. Wood shavings, sawdust, it's great. Just don't use too much of it. Balance it out with other things. Make sure you have 3 or 4 or 5 different variety of material out there. Till it all in this fall. Make sure you incorporate it into the soil this fall. And the microbes that are in the humate will start to decompose all that organic matter.
Down.
The nitrogen feeds the microbes so that they do their job. They'll break that all down. And after winter's over, wave your magic wand out there and poof, it like disappears. You know, it's incorporated back into the soil, builds the soil back up, loosens and lightens the soil up, breaks up clay. I mean, this is the best way to break down clay over years, is just to keep adding organic matter, because the organic matter is a finer particle in the clay, keeps the clay from clumping up. Yeah. And so this is how we condition the soil, put nutrient back in. This is how we, add soil back to our garden as we gradually lose a little bit every year to erosion and whatnot. And so we've got to build that soil back up in the fall so that we have a great garden again the next year. So.
All right, and a reminder too, going on this weekend, the cash sale is continuing with 75% off.
Yep, if you come in and pay with cash, you'll get 75% off. If you want to pay with a credit card or a debit card, we'll probably give you 60% right now. So 60 if you don't want to pay with cash, 75 if you pay with cash. And it's a good time to pick up some shrubs to add into the garden, into the yard, into your landscape. Fall decor is on sale. We've got some really cute items, some great displays, and some of those we're starting to mark down for a discount. And bulbs are here, so all the bulbs are here.
Yes.
Got to get them planted.
Time to get those bulbs planted.
Best time of year to plant bulbs.
Great. Glad to have you in the studio, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden, and we'll talk to you again next week. The Garden Guide, of course, every Saturday through October here on KVNU.
Program of commercial time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims were solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees.
I listen to you all the time.
News Talk, KVNU Logan, 610 AM at 102.1 FM.